to today's episode of Mental Health is Horrifying. I'm your horror Barbie host of darkness, Candace Green, psychotherapist and all-around spooky bitch, podcasting from my bat-filled cave in Toronto, Canada. First, I would like to announce that I have entered into a blood oath with iHeartRadio Canada. It is such a thrill to now be able to spread horror from an even larger stage, sort of like the one that Carrie stood on at the prom. I am so pleased to have entered into this unholy bond, and I want to extend my deepest gratitude to the wonderful team at iHeartRadio Canada and to all my listeners for being here and journeying into the darkness with me. Now, on to today's episode. Movies tend to have a time of year, don't they? We watch Krampus at Christmas time, Trick or Treat at a Halloween, and I like to watch Practical Magic in the springtime. This movie feels like spring to me. I love looking out at the beautiful full moon on a cool spring evening, just like Sally Owens, tending to the lavender I have lovingly placed by my garden gate, and tending to the abusive garbage boyfriend I murdered twice and buried under the rose bush in the backyard. Practical Magic is one of my favorite movies of all time. It conjures such warm, cozy feelings for me and falls into the category of one of those classic 90s witch movies that really put witchcraft into the mainstream and provided a sense of place for modern witches. Some of my favorite girls' nights have been spent making midnight margaritas and dancing around the living room with my bestie to Harry Nilsson's song, Coconut. It's definitely a comfort movie for me, but when we look a bit closer at Practical Magic, it also has a very dark, serious side. Practical Magic, at its core, is a story about how women escape domestic violence, and asking your sisters for help can be a pathway to safety. I will be discussing domestic or intimate partner violence in this episode, so please take special care while listening. Okay, so let's get right into it. Let's check out Practical Magic and explore its portrayal of intimate partner violence and the balm of sisterhood. It's the 17th century in New England, and the Owens family have been persecuted for over 3 centuries. The townspeople tried to hang Mary Owens, but she survived, to the bummer of the father of her unborn child leaving her. Heartbroken and pretty damn mad, Maria cast a spell to prevent herself from ever falling in love again. The spell developed into a curse upon Maria's descendants, ensuring that any man who falls in love with an Owens woman will be doomed to die an untimely death. In the present, the Owens family is comprised of Sally, Gillian, and aunts Frances and Jet, and not much has changed as they are ridiculed by the townspeople for being witches. Sally doesn't want to be made fun of forever, so she attempts to shirk her identity as a witch and tries to follow the straight and narrow by getting married and having kids. Well, that doesn't work out so great because of the Owens curse, and her adorable husband is hit by a truck. Gillian has been gallivanting all over the world until she meets and falls for Jimmy Angelov, who turns out to be an abusive bag of dicks. Gillian asks for Sally's help to escape Jimmy, and in their attempts to flee this violent man who has, by the way, kidnapped both of them, they accidentally poison him with belladonna. I mean, who among us, right? Not wanting to go to jail, they try necromancy, but a leopard never changes its spots, and even as the undead, he is still a violent dickhead, so they kill him again. Both times in self-defense, okay? As any sensible woman would, they bury him in the yard, except this guy simply will not let it rest. He ends up possessing Gillian, and she goes all exorcist on everyone. In the meantime, hunky detective Gary Hallett starts nosing around and trying to solve the mystery of Jimmy being missing/dead. Gillian becomes increasingly possessed, and Sally realizes that those witchy abilities that she shirked all those years ago will sure come in handy now, so she summons a coven of local townspeople, and they perform an occult ritual that not only frees Gillian of Jimmy's spirit, but breaks the Owens curse. Sally and Detective Gary fall in love, and he clears the Owens sisters of any suspicion in Jimmy's death because how would you even go about explaining all of this to a court of law? Practical Magic is one of those movies from the 90s that was received poorly upon its release. Just like Hocus Pocus. What were we even doing in the 90s? I mean, I was just a little baby, so I cannot be held accountable, but come on, guys. Both have obviously since become incredibly popular and are important works to have canonized 90s witchcraft, which is currently giving life to every single one of you listening to this right now. Critics weren't able to understand the combination of supernatural fantasy, rom-com, drama, crime procedural, all while tackling the theme of domestic violence. Well, their impoverished loss is our gain. I'm sorry to tell you this, but the Owens house isn't a real place. It was built to depict the house described in the books written by Alice Hoffman. It has since become the house that every girl wants to live in, complete with witch's apothecary and ex-boyfriend rotting in the garden. The film was directed by Griffin Dunne and stars Sandra Bullock, Nicole Kidman, Diane Weist, Stockard Channing, and Aidan Quinn. But the real star of Practical Magic is the soundtrack. Ugh, it do be having bangers on it. In this episode, we're talking about how sisterhood can help you heal and community and breaking intergenerational curses and all that kind of stuff. But can we also talk about the soundtrack of this movie? Talk about centrifugal motion, Faith Hill? If Practical Magic's soundtrack can't heal you, I just don't know what can. As you may know, Practical Magic 2 is being released this September 11th, and I will be entirely unreachable on that day as my head will be inside a Midnight Margarita in the movie theater. Domestic violence, or intimate partner violence, is a prevalent form of gender-based violence. It refers to multiple forms of harm caused by a current or former intimate partner or spouse. The World Health Organization identifies intimate partner violence as a major global public health concern, as it affects millions of people and can result in immediate and long-lasting health, social, and economic consequences. Intimate partner violence impacts people of all genders, ages, socioeconomic and racial, educational, ethnic, religious, and cultural backgrounds. However, women experience this form of gender-based violence at much higher rates, most often perpetrated by men. Intimate partner violence can occur in both public and private spaces, as well as online. When children are exposed to intimate partner violence, it is considered child abuse. Intimate partner violence can include coercive control, criminal harassment, stalking, emotional or psychological abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse, reproductive coercion, sexual violence, spiritual abuse, or technology-facilitated violence. Of course, we don't know the full picture of the abuse Gillian experienced with Jimmy in Practical Magic, but this man would not even let her go to the bathroom alone. That is an example of coercive control. We know for certain that Gillian experienced physical abuse at the hands of Jimmy after she calls Sally to come get her and has a bruise on her face after he punched her. He then kidnaps her and her sister at gunpoint, which is another example of coercive control, but also criminal harassment and stalking. But hey, I'm not a legal expert. All I know is he's a dick and we need to get these girls away from him. There are a few statistics that I pulled from Stats Canada that I'd like to share with you about intimate partner violence. Police reported data shows that women are overrepresented among those who experience intimate partner violence, including among victims of intimate partner homicides. Despite its severe impacts, most cases of intimate partner violence are not reported. In 2019, 80% of people who had experienced intimate partner violence did not report it to the police. 44% of women and girls who have ever been in an intimate partner relationship, or about 6.2 million women aged 15 and over, reported experiencing some kind of psychological, physical, or sexual abuse in the context of an intimate relationship in their lifetime. Women and girls were significantly more likely than men and boys to have experienced any form of intimate partner violence. Among people who experienced intimate partner violence in their lifetime, women are about 4 times more likely than men to have ever been afraid of a partner. Indigenous women in Canada were significantly more likely to have ever experienced intimate partner violence in their lifetime when compared with non-Indigenous women. And this is maybe my least favorite statistic about this, but in the United States, homicide is the leading cause of death for pregnant women. Not obstetric issues, not complications from childbirth, homicide by their partner. I've heard a lot of things in my day and at this point in my career, but that's definitely one of the grimmest. I want to make something very clear. There is no amount of therapy or self-work that you need to do in order to make someone stop abusing you. It doesn't matter what happened in your childhood, or what your relationship with your dad is like, or what your attachment style is that is relevant to someone being abused. There is nothing a person needs to correct about their behavior or understand about their past to make the abuse stop. This places fault or blame with the victim of abuse. It doesn't matter what Gillian did or didn't do that resulted in her being punched. There is no justification whatsoever for Jimmy's behavior. That's a him problem. There's no situation in which Gillian needs to work on being less aggravating to him or not saying the right thing. I think the incident was something involving a donut, a jelly donut, but there's nothing Gillian should have done differently here. Abuse is not a couple's issue that 2 people need to work through together. Active abuse is a crisis situation, and the primary focus when there is active abuse or intimate partner violence occurring in a relationship is to get the person being abused away from the person abusing them, or certainly to get any children away from that person too if they are in the household. The feelings can be sorted out later. The priority while abuse is happening is to get the victim away from violence and into a safe situation.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
and more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.
question that gets so insensitively asked of people who experience domestic violence. Why didn't you just leave? The first time I saw this movie years ago in my youth, I wondered why Gillian had to call Sally to come get her so she could leave. Like, Sally had to fly all the way out there and then turn around and drive her and Gillian home. I was like, why couldn't Gillian just drive herself home in her own car? It seemed like it would be quicker. Like, couldn't she just go out of there so much faster and be safer if she just left without having to wait for Sally? Well, I didn't understand anything about the complex reasons why victims can't just necessarily up and leave. When people are subjected to repeated violence, physical, sexual, psychological abuse, or otherwise, it can leave them in what is called a depleted self state. This is the profound psychological depletion and exhaustion where the person's mental resources, self-esteem, willpower, and capacity for anything are really depleted after prolonged psychological threat. When Sally enters the motel room to bring Gillian home, we see evidence of Gillian's depleted self-state in the way she is curled up, hiding behind the bed. She has tears streaming down her face and she looks terrified. This is the physical embodiment of a person who is afraid, who feels small and scared, and who is frozen in that fear. We've seen Gillian thrive in other aspects of her life. We've seen her dancing confidently by the pool, singing Joni Mitchell in the car, and lovingly making blood oaths with her sister. But after Gillian has experienced intimate partner violence, that confident woman is hard to access. She is a depleted shell of herself. When many women are told or treated like they are worthless over and over again, they start to believe it. They start to believe that they did something to deserve this. There are so many practical and psychological barriers that make it difficult to leave an abusive situation, and I'll name a few. First of all, safety. Many women fear what their abuser might do to them or their children if they leave or attempt to leave. According to Refuge, the largest domestic abuse organization in the UK, women are at the greatest risk of homicide at the point of separation or after leaving a violent partner. Jimmy is a really bad guy. As we find out later during the police inquiry led by Officer Gary Hallett, he murdered a woman, and Gillian could likely feel how dangerous he was throughout the course of their relationship, even before his vicious physical attacks. Fear causes many people to freeze or play possum, paralyzed by fear, unable to act, scared that if they move, that will leave them susceptible to even more violence. Many women also experience denial and shame associated with intimate partner violence. Denial is the mind's internal mechanism to protect itself from acknowledging the horrible severity of the situation. Denial also attempts to protect us from shame, which is the belief that we somehow deserve this. There can also be shame associated with other people finding out. Many women, again, feel like it's their fault. How could I be so stupid? How could I get myself into a situation like this? Unfortunately, there is still so much social stigma associated with domestic violence, and women internalize this. We see instances of Gillian making light of her own situation, occasionally laughing off what has happened to her, which is an example of how her internal psychology is trying to diffuse the situation to make it more tolerable to her already depleted self-state. The denial, guilt, and shame associated with experiencing intimate partner violence does not simply go away after someone has left the relationship. It can last a very long time and can create new narratives around what it means for that person to be in current or future relationships, repatterning that person's understanding of love and safety. It may become difficult for them to open up or trust, which makes sense as a defensive strategy to try to protect themselves from future abuse. Financial dependence. This is a really big one. Many women literally do not have the financial resources to leave. If they have experienced financial abuse, access to money may be extremely limited or non-existent, or her abuser uses financial records to track her. If she has children and no access to this money, this makes it even more difficult. The Jekyll and Hyde effect. This is a psychological doozy. In one moment, he's throwing you against a wall, and in the next moment, he's showering you with flowers, telling you you're the most beautiful woman in the world and he can't live without you. He oscillates between rage and charm, which makes you tell yourself, he's not always like this, he's under a lot of stress right now, and so forth. You hope that things will get better because you've seen the good in him. This is a very tricky one because there was obviously a reason why someone entered into a relationship in the first place. Gillian saw Jimmy as exciting and mysterious and up for an adventurous life. I'm sure they had lots of fun together, which makes the whole thing so much more confusing when your person starts turning on you. Societal, religious, or familial pressure. We do be living in a patriarchal society, and that means that there is very strong messaging around standing by your man and keeping the family together and trying harder to make it work. Ugh, gross. But these pressures can make it really difficult for people to leave these abusive situations. She loves him. Love is not a light switch that you turn off. It's possible to both love someone and to be afraid of them. This is probably one of the more heartbreaking reasons why women can't just leave. By the way, I could literally go on forever with reasons why it's hard for women to leave their abusive partners. Like, I could literally go all day. The point I'm trying to make is that it's never as easy as just leave now. At the end of the day, those experiencing domestic violence don't need judgment. They need understanding and they need support. When we conjure up images of practical magic in our minds, we think about this warm and fuzzy movie, but it has some really terrifying scenes, which is why I'm also categorizing it as a horror movie. I don't want to hear any of your guff. And that scene in particular, where Gillian literally gets possessed by the spirit of Jimmy Angelov, it's terrifying. After the Owen sisters killed Jimmy twice, we'll get into that later, his spirit resurrects and possesses Gillian. It is violent, disturbing, and terrifying. Gillian becomes unable to continue living her life as she is totally and literally possessed by this evil man. While Jimmy might be dead, his domination of Gillian and eventual possession of her is a potent metaphor for the many practical and psychological barriers to leaving a relationship with a violent partner. It also demonstrates the lasting impacts that abuse can have on someone. Gillian becomes someone else entirely when Jimmy possesses her. She becomes dark and unnatural, which are terms she and her sister use to describe Jimmy himself. It seems that even Sally can no longer find Gillian in her own body, and her family becomes afraid of her, unsure initially how to help. Her posture changes. She embodies Jimmy's sinister voice, and her eyes have changed, no longer reflecting her signature witchy joie de vivre. Even though Jimmy is technically dead, the terror that Gillian experienced in the relationship does not simply end. It created trauma inside of her, a wound that she now carries that is hard to shake. This movie is just under 2 hours, so Gillian's healing process is expedited for our sake, but abuse can have long-lasting impacts. In this story, what exorcises Gillian from her pain, from her abusers, is her sisters. Now, I would never advocate murdering an abusive man twice, at least not while I'm being recorded. However, have you heard of something called psychodrama? It's a therapeutic approach where participants act out scenes from their lives, dreams, dynamics, or feelings to explore and better understand themselves while providing catharsis. To be fair, the first time Sally and Gillian killed Jimmy, it was self-defense. Can you poison someone in self-defense? I don't know. Again, I'm not a legal expert, so who's to say? But that man literally abused, kidnapped, and then tried to strangle Gillian to death. So those sisters did what they needed to do to survive. And then they performed a ritual where they had every intention of bringing him back to life by covering him in a whipped cream pentacle and invoking mighty goddess Hecate, and then they had to kill him again in self-defense because he tried to strangle them again. What else were they supposed to do? What are the Owen sisters trying to show us in this psychodrama they are performing as they kill Jimmy twice? They are showing us how helpless they felt against this man, how difficult it was to escape him, that even if you do escape him once, he will come back and find you. They are showing us the rage they felt towards him and the violence they also wanted to inflict against him. Psychodrama, where we act our feelings out, is healthy because it prevents us from killing real people we have resurrected from the dead. If there's one thing that practical magic teaches us, is that witches are real and we out here. And lots of witchy people are looking for therapists who speak their language and know how to use the tools that reflect their spiritual practices and how they see the world. Tarot for Creative Therapists is a course for mental health professionals who have always wanted to integrate tarot into their clinical work but haven't quite been sure how. Learn how to confidently and ethically incorporate tarot into your therapy practice, offering your clients a valuable tool for integration and self-discovery. You'll walk away with a clear understanding of the ethical considerations for including tarot in your practice, along with creative tarot exercises that you can include in your therapy practice that complement evidence-based therapeutic modalities so nicely. All course material is available on demand, so you can do this course when it makes sense for you. Okay, bye. Leaving an abusive partner is not a single act. It is a process that takes time, support, and resources. And you want to talk about time? How about generations of dickhead men? In the opening scene of Practical Magic, we learn about the Owens family curse. In the 17th century, Maria Owens survives an attempted hanging for witchcraft, and then, while pregnant, is abandoned by the father of her child. Incredible. Heartbroken, Maria casts a spell to ensure she would never feel love's pain again, creating a generational curse, dooming any man who falls in love with an Owens woman to die an untimely death. I think the fact that Jimmy succumbed to this curse perfectly demonstrates one of those tricky reasons we discussed earlier that makes it difficult to leave an abusive relationship, the Jekyll and Hyde effect. Gillian did not get into a relationship with a man she perceived to be abusive, and this might be difficult to hold, but not everyone who ends up being abusive gets into a relationship believing that they will turn into an abusive monster. If Jimmy fell to the Owens family curse, that has to mean that at some point, Jimmy genuinely did love Gillian, and she probably did genuinely love him, making this whole situation all the more complex. It makes the psychological landscape for Gillian rocky and confusing. It is common for women to blame themselves when they are in an abusive relationship, but it can be illuminating to ask yourself, why did you enter into this relationship in the first place? What was he like when you first met? This can build self-compassion as you remind yourself that this really was a confusing situation. We know that it takes a great deal of internal and external resources to leave an abusive relationship. Gillian is so fortunate that she had enough internal resourcing to be able to find inside of herself the strength to call and ask for help. She is fortunate to have Sally as an external resource as well. She has her aunts too, Jet and Franny, along with her nieces, a big house to stay in, food on the table, and tequila available in margarita form at midnight. Sally also reaches out into the community to assemble a coven of women to help the family banish Jimmy's spirit, permanently breaking the generational curse. Or, at least we hope so. We'll see what happens in practical magic too. This is one of my favorite parts of the movie because these were women who had previously taunted, teased, and excluded Owenses over the years simply because they were witches. But there was just something about knowing a woman was being abused, that she was in serious trouble, and that only the magic of sisterhood could heal, that touched every woman who showed up that night with a broom or a handheld dustbuster in hand. Given how unfortunately common intimate partner violence can be, I'm sure there were many women in that group who recognized themselves in Gillian and knew that they had to help. The women join their hands in a circle, an act of solidarity against domination, violence, and possession. As Jimmy is exorcised from Gillian and the family curse is being lifted, Gillian connects to her ancestor, Maria Owens, and the legacy of patriarchal pain within the bloodline is replaced with matriarchal love. My favorite part of the exorcism is when Margot Martindale, who is the best part of everything that she is in, says, "Come on, ladies, let's clean house." And all the women begin literally sweeping the dirty, yucky, gross ashes of Jimmy out of the house, giving "I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair" vibes. Gillian finds herself again in the women who form a circle of protection around her, telling her, "We love you." This type of attachment repair, finding safety in other people again, is what can help rewrite trauma narratives associated with intimate partner violence.
Pride is like love. You feel it in your heart. iHeartRadio, Canada's #1 streaming app for radio and podcasts, including iHeart Pride Canada, your favorite hits, and must-have party bangers, plus personalized and curated playlists like Back in the Day Pride.
Come together, celebrate love.
Take Pride with you anytime, anywhere. Just ask your smart speaker to play iHeart Pride Canada. Stream us on your phone or listen now at iHeartRadio.ca.
There are are two tarot cards that I would associate with practical magic, and I'll share the first one with you. This might not come as a surprise, but the card that I have chosen is the Magician. This is a very magical person, and part of what makes them so magical and so capable is that they have a lot of resources. To me, this is Gillian in practical magic. If we look closely, the Magician / Gillian has every suit in the tarot at their disposal. They have pentacles, they have wands, they have cups, they have a sword, and they have this in an infinite quantity. They have lots of it, perhaps referencing this internal resourcing that I was talking about. That's the infinity symbol over their head. It's something that they can always draw on. So it's that internal resource, but it's also like Gillian literally has lots of resources that were able to come to her aid. She has Sally, she has her aunts, she has that big witchy awesome house to stay in. And these things really helped her to be able to leave the abusive relationship. And I wish that for all women. I wish that all women could have that level of resourcing that can help them combat the already difficult psychological landscape that women can face in being able to leave intimate partner violence in the first place. There's all these psychological factors that tell women that they can't stay, or it's too scary, or they are going to face more violence if they leave. So having these resources can help combat some of that internal psychology that causes a lot of women to freeze or not know what to do, or feel that it's actually safer or better, or they deserve to stay in this abusive relationship. And so a card that I've pulled to go along with the Magician here is the Nine of Swords. So this is a card of mental anxiety, of mental pain, of suffering, and it shows that even though someone may seem like they're a go-getter, like they're this powerful woman, intimate partner violence can impact anybody. It's very insidious. And while Gillian was very fortunate to be able to leave this situation, and I mean, like, who knows what will happen in practical magic too, right? Like maybe Jimmy will come back, you know, we'll have to see how that goes. But the Nine of Swords is the part that shows that it's not always so easy to just leave. It is incredibly psychologically fraught, and it can stay with you for years and really impact your sense of self. Women are not rehabilitation centers for violent men. Despite what we've been sold about fixing him or reforming the bad boy, it is not your job to heal a violent man. In Practical Magic, Sally shares some of her everyday rituals for practical magic. She says, always throw spilled salt over your left shoulder, keep rosemary by your garden gate, plant lavender for luck, and fall in love whenever you can. I'd like to create a new spell, some new rituals for practical magic when it comes to banishing a violent man. Always throw abusive men to the curb where they belong. Keep your bestie's phone number at the top of your contact list. Plant big dreams for your future. And fall in love with strong, supportive sisters whenever you can. That, my ghouls, is the story of practical magic and its portrayal of intimate partner violence and the balm of sisterhood. I don't know about you, but I have already planned a rewatch of Practical Magic with my bestie, and to be completely unreachable on September 11th when Practical Magic 2 is released. I have to focus. Mental Health is Horrifying is researched, written, and edited by me, Candace Green, registered and spooky psychotherapist, and proudly produced in partnership with iHeartRadio Canada. If you like this podcast, please consider rating and reviewing on your preferred listening platform. It really helps the show to reach all the other spooky ghouls out there, and I will be eternally grateful. And an eternity is a very long time for a vampire, okay? If you're a mental health professional who wants to learn how to incorporate tarot into their practice, join Tarot for Creative Therapists, where you will learn practical exercises for how to incorporate tarot ethically and confidently into your practice. You can follow me on Instagram at Mental Health is Horrifying, and you can also learn more about me and my services through my website, manymoonstherapy.com. Or you can also howl at the moon and I will hear your call. Bright blessings.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back
2010s, the decade.
to the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katie, Gaga, The Weeknd.
And more. All your decade-defining favorites all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.